And so with that, we're going to let the kid president give us a pep talk. Now, I do not know anything about how loud this will be, so if it's too loud, I'm sorry.
Okay, we all need a pep talk. The world needs to stop being boring. Yeah. Boring is easy. Everybody thinks boring. You're good at that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. It's a game. Are we all the same team? I mean, really, right? It's a team. People got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. Oh, 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Rocks, bullets, and glass, fire smoke. Not cool, Robert Frost. I won't give him that taste of awesome. Like that dude Drizzle said. We'll stop believing. Let's see. Get better, man, to keep going. Keep going, keep going, and keep going. What happened to Jordan that quit? No, he's retired. Yeah, yes, retired. Before that, high school. What if he quit when he didn't make the team? Well, I never made Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create and make more awesome? Nothing that we keep sitting there. That's what I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. We're all in the same team. Let's start acting. That works. Shout out. You are made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I'm knowing everything. It's just a kid. Make something that's so awesome.
Okay, well, I love the kid president, right? And he just says now you've been pep talked. So I just want to encourage you all to go out, and it's hard to tell people you're uncertain and be vulnerable. Like, it's hard. Find somebody in the hospital if you're comfortable doing that. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get to the next slide. There we go. Try to find someone on that long list. There's probably one of those people that you really completely trust, it's hard, right? When you've got 3 doctors coming in and they're all telling you something different. Does that ever happen to anybody? Yeah. Right? Or the nurse does one thing, then the doctor comes in and tells you something totally different, right? And then who do you believe, right? And that's a challenging thing to do. So your role as a parent is critical. You don't require a medical degree to do that. You just had the baby, right? And now you're all of a sudden an expert. And it's kind of a scary time, right? Because they're saying, all right, so here's all the information presented to you. What do you think? Right? And you just sit there for a minute and think, wow, they're giving me all this power to make these decisions, and it's really hard. So I'll encourage you to reach out to people and say, you know what, I'm not real sure, but let me ask some questions. That journal I gave you, write them down. How many people have people walk in their room and say, okay, well, here's the plan, and do you have any questions? Okay, great, thanks so much. And they walk out, right? And then you think of 20 things that you could have thought of or you could have asked. That ever happened? I see lots of people nodding their heads, right? So when that happens, write them down. So the next time they come in for their 10 minutes, you say, okay, well, when you left yesterday, I've got some follow-up for you, right? That's really important. If it's more urgent than waiting till that next visit, ask your nurse, ask the chaplain, ask the social worker, find a family advocate, whatever it is, get somebody in there to help you, okay? So no questions too small. Don't be afraid to ask. Here's my example. Last week, I worked in hospitals my whole career since the early 90s. And so last week, a very dear friend of mine who is not familiar, she's a school teacher, she had her child was in the hospital. And they weren't at Texas Children's Medical Center. They were at Texas Children's in the Woodlands, which is one of our suburban communities. And she called and she said, I'm in the hospital. And she said, they have all these signs on the wall, and I don't know what any of them mean. So she's calling me, right, in another part of town and saying, I don't know, what does NPO mean? It's on my door. What does that mean? And I said, okay, what else don't you understand? Well, they said I'm gonna have this procedure. And what does that mean? What is IR? So, right, it's a whole different language. And I think whenever, especially when you're new to it, right, you learn over time, right? And so the language that they speak over in the cancer center is very different than what they speak in the heart center, right? And then when you have to cross those lines, or you have 3 different problems, right, or 3 different body systems involved, you're learning 3 different languages. So I want to encourage you all really to stop and to say, I don't know what that NPO means, right? And really advocate for yourself, because it's okay to ask the question and not be ashamed about it, right? Because I think we take for granted, because we speak that language all the time, we take for granted that people understand what we're saying. And if you don't ask questions, then we assume that you do. So be sure you're asking those questions. When providers are inconsistent with communication, what do y'all do? Get mad. What else? Oh, nobody told me I was going to have to talk in this. What do y'all do? Do you say, but wait a minute? Or do you just kind of just let them go and believe the one that you want to believe? Like, it's a no, you don't do that. Okay, excellent. So what I'll tell you is stop them and say, well, wait, this person that just came in before you told me something different, right? So be sure that you're stopping people and saying, this doesn't make sense to me. Well, Nurse Susie, Nurse Jane, and, Dr. Sue told me something different than what you're telling me, and I'm not really understanding. And if they go, well, I don't know, then you always have the right to call what they call a family conference. Like, get everybody in the same room. You've got a right to do that, okay? And every hospital, every healthcare provider should be willing to do it. Now, getting 10 doctors in a room at one time is kind of challenging sometimes, right? Has anybody ever tried to experience that?
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to get everybody in the room at the same time. It's critical, right? Because you bring your most important thing to us, right? And so all of these folks on my long list, they go home at the end of the day to deal with their whatever it is that they have that's important to them. And you all bring your most important thing to us. And it's worth it for you to stand up and say, I need your help. I need to get everybody together. So don't forget that. And your voice is critical. How to provide feedback is important as well. Being an advocate for yourself is important. Being the one who screams and yells is not. Nurses don't go into nursing school. Are there any nurses in the room? Okay, one. All right. Nurses don't go to nursing school to mitigate conflict, right? Right? They go to nursing school to help people. Okay. So when your healthcare provider feels like you're yelling at them, it kind of throws them off their game a little bit, right? And so we want them to be able to provide the best care for you. And so what I tell you just about this point is providing feedback. Be authentic and say, I'm really scared, I'm worried, I'm confused, I'm getting different stories. Be honest with people. And the more you continue to do that, the closer those relationships are that you build with your healthcare team, and the more able they are to assist you with the questions that you have. If you're not getting along with this person or that person, find someone else, right? There's always someone else. There always is. And then you can start asking for their leaders, right? Because there's always somebody else. So I'll just advise you to be as authentic as you can. These are the things that are worrying me. I'm getting inconsistent information. I'm really frustrated. Please give me a hand. If something doesn't seem right, it might not be right. So say something. I think a lot of times people go, oh, well, that, whatever. Oh, that's normal. Really? That doesn't seem normal to me. It's not the way that my child is when I'm not here, right? And when we're in the hospital, it doesn't seem right. Or when we're in the clinic, it seems different. So here are the things I'm seeing that are not normal. I can't tell you how many times I go to the pediatrician, right? And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Remember, go back to my, your kid better than anybody else. You know how they are at home. You know how they are when they're exercising. You know how they are when they're not. So it's important that when you see something, you're the expert and you need to let us know. The role of social media and the internet is an interesting sort of double-edged sword. I would take it with a grain of salt. The people that I see that are on social media, it's a great form of support. Lots of folks have started blogs about here's my experience, and just to share that with the world out there that might need their help. You'll get very positive things and very not so positive things. And so I just caution you about social media. I caution you about the internet. I think the same goes, right? Has anybody ever been warned about the internet, right? You know, when I hear a new diagnosis that I've never heard before, I'm going to Google it, right? Because that's the way that we find out things in the world today. You know, I always take those things as just another piece of data, just another piece of information. Sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not, right? So you got my journal. Did everybody get one or more? Because I really don't want to take them back. Write down your questions, your thoughts. I always say write down your medications because sometimes those change over time. Those change for you all. What can you do to help your hospital? I think one of the most important things you can do to be helpful to your hospital, your healthcare team, is talk to other parents. They don't want to hear from me, right? They don't want to necessarily hear from the social worker or the dietitian. They want to hear that piece of expertise. They want to hear from somebody who's been there. And so it's super helpful when you do share your story. Be a parent advisor. Many hospitals have parent advisory groups where they share and they're committed to the hospital and they share their experiences to make things better. And then there's always financial giving, right? They asked if people would want to know whether or not you can do that. Every hospital, I promise you, has a development page where you can go and share your money. This is something that we have a music therapist here at the hospital, and I always like to do something fun in my conversations with patients and families. So this is a minute, just over a minute long. Hopefully it's not crazy loud, but it's this is Huck's heart, and you will hear in the very beginning Huck's actual heartbeat, and they set a song to it. So I thought I'd share that with you because I think it's really tremendous. It was like 5 minutes long. I made them cut down, so it wouldn't be too long for you all. That's right.
Well, hello, little baby. Your eyes have never seen the sun. You should know, little baby, that I am the lucky one. I get to be the one to hold your hand. I get to be the one. Birthdays and broken bones, I'll be there to watch you grow. I get to be the one. Don't feel alone now, little baby. Do you hear me singing you a song? I can't wait to show you, little baby, how to crawl, how to walk, and how to run.
It's pretty awesome, right? I don't know if your hospital or your place has music therapists. Ours is pretty incredible. She sings way better than me. This is the last slide. I passed this out as well. I always like to walk away from a talk with something to look at or something that will help me. I hope that these will help you. I will draw your attention. The top part is some books. Websites at the bottom, the last two, will be helpful. One is from the National Institute of Health, and you can type in that link. It will give you a list and some tips about talking to your doctor, right? It's always good to kind of What am I forgetting, right? You have any other questions? Right? I don't always remember the things I'm supposed to remember. And then the one underneath that is the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, the A. That rolls off the tongue really fast. And that also is some tips on talking to your healthcare team. So if you want to go online, those things might be very helpful to you. Thanks so much.
Guys, we are doing really well. We are about 6 minutes over. So instead of a 15-minute break, how about we take a 10-minute break? All right. While they are doing that, Jody sent me some information here. They will be passing out the Mended Little Heart guidelines while you guys are taking a quick break. We have English and Spanish. This is the light version, and the digital version will be on the mendedlittleheartguide.org. All right. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. But 10 minutes, and then we start back. Thanks, guys. Thank you.